shidna ko Canada siyo gizido ko jesn ado bikij a anadi nido kodo ya Navajo Nation Office of the President and Vice President a kodo agency meeting iki ade neto ado American Rescue Plan at nini a kodo ba nate ino le ako she ade la she she da hanos chedi ma ideshki shon kodo chi bashin tapaha eda she ado she eda shnala Aro totus aholiere are yisich shike ako yisipe hahui tlahiki edi todazin lini ko ishi tapa adi ni a kodo atilete na tani lini kedo sadahi Honorable Vice President Myron Lizer ishin kodo todazin lini nakaye ido leaf Mr. Lizer, you have the floor.
Oh yeah, thank you, Dr. Fowler. Appreciate your leadership. Thank you for facilitating. You're doing a tremendous job. Appreciate it. We do thank our president, Jonathan Nez, as well for his exemplary leadership. So, and all those on the call, God bless you. Let us open up in prayer and get this Central Agency American Rescue Plan Act meeting started. Yeah, dear God, Bohonihi God, we give you praise and honor and glory today. Thank you for the ability to meet like we are virtually, Lord. Continue to pray your blessings and healing across our land. We pray for our people and those that enduring hardship right now. Lord, take care of them. Build them up stronger than ever before. Lord, as we convene in a meeting, Lord, I pray your wisdom, your knowledge, Lord, that we can, as leaders, can benefit the whole Navajo Nation, the Neta, and our people, Lord, all across here. You wish that no one be left struggling, Lord. And so we use all the resources at our disposal, Lord. Thank you for the gifts of money, of funding, Lord, which we're talking about. It is merely a tool, Lord. Let us use this money to advance the Navajo Nation, Lord. You set us here on our land, Lord. You knew there was a reason. Also, there's a reason why we are still here. So we acknowledge you, Creator, being God, Bolanihi, God. We give you the full preeminent space and position, Lord, in our lives and in our land. Heal your people and heal your land. Bless your people, Lord, through the leadership, Father. So we ask for your wisdom again. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Ahya, Dean God. Thank you, Dr. Fowler.
Yeah, she asked Nakatsanadins Ara Quijin Nakatsadils do Eba Henits and Anasa. Nana Nas Eya Kodon Hinat and Linishan President Honorable President Jonathan Nez Ishin Nanido, at least Mr. President, you have the floor.
Sister Dr. Fowler, Vice President China, Kodana Katsadin Zinigi, Kiana, Liaho Agijo AD, Johan A. Kodo, Nik Adi Naninat Anitana Zandan, Benigim Jastane, Adadi, Nishbin, Bindashil Nishan, Dunley CARES Act, Pesoch that Aya, Sadi 2020, Yahada. Ado a January no February in the ajnish. Ya la naido kido halate peso chose No jobaz no kudo hidna what ya nahat agi بالبدا هزن دولار دو بنديلشي دو قدو اني واشنطن peso la azlito nihije konana nahgi je edo alait au bin dadil nish kana znalbe jadi je ya central agency chinli how zoje kana znana no flinigi je kudo naido kidigishi kudo baho atole o khayu naido kido ajo ni besh pas an di atlahand atleha nadi kida hije konal jo kodo alka ne jagi min nachshi khanen hije kode ne to halait le shriyat do kana zana hada sogo lana danzenigi nikije kode leto le nat sos baka so AC do jo aschane dal neto le so naso kanle Washington infrastructure bill le nigi edo yanda o di shi lanj da sitagi the Washington President Joe Biden Joe Biden ACA ya shladin hawt zogo di tsoshi konke huit inigin ha ich hat sich dolde hishint yan sikye si erge yanda inigi jo teen jost da doz ni no eso yep biye chida dod yanda so tra ko shi hot bada huil dolde CARES Act fund American Rescue Plan Act funds auto infrastructure funds so biniye ishtedda di nehdole yiche yago auto dishnit CARES Act gigi ya peso so it nezna tindo ba tits tahta mil sohnel peso the nebich echedet taade naidol ki halait peso shows tlan tlataz handi tzi tzi gi hit ya kon lana dani tsinigi aj ka do wato di best chi da do thoda nas ko do nigi aj da chi do insha no na idol ki so ebini na ko ta ho do da shi ro shi na ko da sino tsari ado kon Dr. Fowler do ye tsele data nigi shi skills ko jo you na hat ado kudo na chindo hanne egini hije kude now di nek achiya da do belganik achiya da tio ahadna ibni na hikato chashik eno fini on ye masani chain nalado ba istao edo di hanne hije kuda ya which ashana da se ashmon so she ya abelganik achiya yada kitdoles. She da hanosin. Jonathan Nez, President Naval Nation. She ain't she no tkat insani, but she twidchini da she do tkachini da she nam. Yad en hidini do that. Not twane da he not do da is not on. You know, we want to just let everyone know that there are questions from the chapters and the local community members on this American Rescue Plan Act funding that we are anticipating to get. The U.S. Treasury has yet to develop a formula for ARPA. We're going to call it ARPA, this Rescue Plan Act, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA dollars that are to be given to the 574 tribes. Remember, during the CARES Act last year, Treasury had to do a formula again too. And it took a long time before the money. We had to even file a lawsuit against the federal government, the Treasury, to get our share of resources. And I hope that doesn't happen when we ask Treasury to quickly develop this formula. Our formula that we're recommending is based on 4 criteria: population, land size, the employees that are on the Navajo Nation, and how hard hit a tribe went through this pandemic. During the CARES Act, it was based on HUD numbers, population, and also employment and size of the nations out there. But what we're saying is we want to be able to make sure that we get our share of resources when it comes to $20 billion that's going out to Indian country. If you have a copy of the agenda, our Chinle Agency Council will be getting an overview on the funds today. And Dr. Perfilia Fowler our Director for Division of Human Resources, will be facilitating the discussion. So I want to say thank you to Central Agency Council President, Joe Dedman, Vice President, Al Sada, Secretary, Rosanna Jumbo Finch, for your leadership, and congratulations once again to those new members, and congratulations for returning chapter officials. This is focused on the Chinle Agency. We did have two meetings yesterday with the Eastern Agency at 9, Fort Defiance at 1 p.m. yesterday. This morning we had a similar meeting with Western Agency at 9 a.m. and now Chinle at 1 p.m. Tomorrow, Northern Agency at 9 a.m. So let the Navajo people and your constituents know that if they want to hear the presentation, they can tune in to the Facebook Live social media pages for the Office of President, Vice President. There's been a lot of questions. As you know, our executive branch cabinet members have been getting the information out, compiling the information, and also being told to go do presentations at the council. And once those presentations started to happen at the council, we got a lot of questions. And so we wanted to make sure that we get information out closer to our Navajo citizens, agency-wide, and to our chapter officers. So that's why these 5 agency meetings are happening. And this is just an introductory. Just remember, CARES Act, $714 million came to nation. We're going to do a presentation to give you an update of what's been used, how it's been spent, and then also go into our lessons learned. What did we learn from the CARES Act allocation, and to make sure that we don't have those same mistakes during the CARES Act. And when we get the American Rescue Plan Act funds, it's not here yet. We're anticipating maybe April or May, and then we we'll begin to talk about there's a lot of needs, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of needs, more than what we're going to be getting in money. And we don't want it to just be a free-for-all, with all due respect, because there's going to be a focus on Project Ready, or some of those projects that didn't get funded with the CARES Act dollars. There is another pot of money coming in for the CARES Act to the Navajo Nation. What our recommendation is to use that additional CARES Act funds for our constituents that haven't received hardship monies, those that applications were lost, or some that didn't apply on time, to put some dollars to put that aside. And then also for our businesses. Some of those businesses didn't get their direct relief because of the timelines being moved around. And so we're going to be able to help them if we can get all of us to agree upon that. But when it comes to the American Rescue Plan Act, we like a majority of those dollars based on the needs of the local community to go to infrastructure. That's housing, water lines, electricity, broadband telecommunication, house wiring, things like that, that we can show an improvement in our communities. So this is the first of other presentations. Well, this is just an introductory. We'll have one on economic development, business development projects. Our vice president chairs the economic recovery work group. We'll also have one on housing with the NHA. We'll also have infrastructure. We'll have NECA and NTUA there doing those presentations. And, we will get the information out just similar to what we're doing today. If you have the agenda, I appreciate the invocation from the vice president. We'll also have welcome addresses from all the 4 leaders of the 3 branches. We'll go into an update on the Navajo Nation CARES Act Fund by our Office of President, Vice President, Executive Staff Assistant Leonard Sosi. Again, giving you an update. $714 million for the CARES Act. How are we utilizing those dollars? What dollars were used? And 314 million of those went into the pockets of our Navajo citizens in direct relief, the hardship assistance. A big pot of money was used for electricity and water lines, these towers for broadband and telecommunication, also bathroom additions, cistern projects, and many others. We'll give you an update. And what's remaining, and just to give you an update, at the beginning, we wanted a lot of that to go into infrastructure, but there was some internal deadlines. If we didn't get past that deadline, the monies would get reverted back into the hardship account. That's why over 314 million was in direct aid to our Navajo people. And I hope our Navajo people, each and every one of you, used dollars wisely for food or supplies, paying your bills and things to that effect. So the next step would be, or the next part of the agenda would be the lessons learned. What did we learn from the CARES Act? What laws hindered us to get development done? That will be by our Chief of Staff, Paulson Chaco, and Garrett Silversmith, our Navajo Department of Transportation. We developed white papers, white paper meaning our recommendations. We put a lot of these in. The Navajo people during the election, you told us that there's just so much red tape here in Window Rock. Guess what? Some of those red tapes are also in Washington, D.C. And so what we developed is a paper to recommending to the White House and to our congressional delegation to amend those laws so that economic and community development projects can happen quicker here on the Navajo Nation. And also we're going to do the same for Navajo Nation laws so that projects can get done a lot quicker, not just for us, but also for future leaders to get projects done. And you all know, Navajo people, that projects don't get done quickly, and some of those recommendations are right-of-way process. You all know home site lease process takes forever. Business site lease takes forever. Well, I shouldn't say forever, but it takes a long time. But those types of laws, environmental regulations need to be reevaluated. So we're going to be talking about that. And some of this already has gone to the Department of Interior with our new Secretary, Deb Haaland. Also the White House. We've been working diligently together with the White House and the staff there. As you all know, the First Lady of the United States of America came to Navajo Nation, Window Rock last week, Thursday, Friday. Many of this information was shared with her as well. She's got the ear of the president. And we just want to say also thank you to our First Lady of the Navajo Nation, Cecilia Inez, for bringing up a lot of the family items to the attention of the First Lady of the United States of America, including education and healthcare. The next item on the agenda, we're going to talk about the American Rescue Plan Act presentation. Santi Lewis, our director for the Navajo Nation Washington office, will give you an overview of all this money. $20 billion going out to tribes. $1 billion was set aside, equally distributed, 574 tribes. The remaining $19 billion will be done by a formula. That formula has yet to be finalized. Just to let you know, the money's not here yet, but we're preparing. And we want you to know how we're preparing as well. And Santi will also give us other pots of monies that are out there that we can apply for. See, the 20 billion is going straight to tribes. There's other fundings like 1 billion for broadband telecommunication. The Navajo Nation has to apply. BIE got money. Those are schools on our Navajo Nation. They're going to get money directly. It doesn't go through the tribe. The BIA will get some money. Indian Health Services will get some money. And so we want to leverage those dollars so we can get many of these bigger projects completed. And let me just also share with you that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, has a burial assistance fund. Our thoughts and prayers go out to our 1,200 plus Navajo families who have lost loved ones. And, FEMA has put monies aside to get reimbursed. So those families who took out of their own, I know it was difficult when Before we could bring families together and they donate. This time around, we weren't able to do it because of the pandemic. But if you put in your own money, you can get up to $9,000 of that back. But you have to apply as a family. And what I'm telling our cabinet, our division directors is we got to make sure that you get the information so it'll be easier for you to click on a site so you can download all that information, fill it out, and send it back. And it has to be done by you, constituents, and we don't want you to be burdened from a debt from a funeral. So we want you to be able to apply directly, and if you need help, Navajo Nation employees should be there to assist as well. So that's going to be her presentation about the American Rescue Plan Act. After that, Division of Community Development, Dr. Pearl Yellerman will talk about the process. As I mentioned earlier, you know, there's a lot of needs, and whatever we're getting is not going to address all the needs. There's got to be a process. There's got to be a vetting process to all these projects. You know, a lot of projects have already been vetted, and they're already on the list. Those chapters that have it on the ICIP, you know, we just need to double check on those, make sure that they're on there, how far we're at on the process of water line, electricity at the local community level. And of course, new projects, you know, they have to be vetted. And 3 years is what we're saying. If it's a new project, specialty projects, then we need to get the process in place so that by the 3rd year, it's ready to go, it's construction ready. If we can't do that, then some of these projects, you know, we don't want to have any money reverted back to the federal government as well. And then after that, we'll have a question and answer. Dr. Fowler will facilitate that. Just be respectful on the question and answer part. I know there's a lot of questions. They'll also give you a webpage. All this frequently asked questions will be compiled and uploaded to, and including the PowerPoint presentation, uploaded to the DCD website, and we'll share that with our social media pages as well. And then the closing remarks will be JT Willie, Division of Economic Development Division Director, who's going to give us an overview of the next steps. Like I said, there's going to be an economic development, a business component to this down the road once we receive the money. And that's, we're looking at maybe late May or early June, crossing our fingers that the formula will be finalized and monies will be into the Navajo Nation's account so we can start doing these projects. So it's always good to start planning in anticipation, and again, using the lessons learned from the CARES Act to get a lot of these projects done. So I just, again, want to just say thank you. And there's a lot of folks who have been assisted with the previous CARES Act monies, water line, electricity, a lot of accomplishment. Thank you to the division directors, all of them, for their hard work, doing presentations across at the council, and then at the same time trying to get these projects completed. And today, you know, we're focusing on giving our agencies an update. And, you know, with the enterprises, the Navajo Gaming Enterprises did get some dollars for relief as well for their closure. As you know, we are seeing some very low numbers. Yesterday, 0 deaths, 0 cases. So good job. But we can't celebrate too much, right? I mean, we're not out of the pandemic yet. I just want to say to the Navajo people and the leadership all across the Navajo Nation, thank you so much. I know in social media people are saying, well, people don't listen, but if you really are out there, as I did, 110 chapters, including the vice president and our team, people are listening, and that's why you're seeing some very low numbers and plus high rates of vaccinations in our community. So thank you, and all of this has been compiled into our Nahata plan, which will also be put in as a website for you to view. And that's basically all the comments when we were out there in the communities, what you all wanted the leadership to address. And a lot of that will be addressed by working together and getting infrastructure projects for our Navajo people. Thank you for the prayers. This is an unprecedented time in our Navajo Nation history. We appreciate the President of the United States of America, the Vice President, the leadership of the Congress for allocating these dollars to all of the United States, not just Indian country, but all the United States. And all this is our share of resources to improve the quality of life for our Navajo people. So, Nihe Kodo, Ihe Nakatsudo Tsunigi, Aaron Hinat, I do Watsudo Tsunigido, Ja Ishibini na Ekon, Dina Negi, the Kosinskagi, but that was Nagido, Yakon, Dana Natin, Hil Kido Asaiche, Arosat Nitsa, Nikani, Arosat Nitsa, Jitenda. Arosat, but there was not the Kosinskagi has states that. You hear that? Alka Natcha, although that is not the Zel in a cancel zone. I could Adailia, Ishibina Kon, large at the Sutagi, lay Kinsley as Washington, then large at the Sutagi, President Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Dr. Joe Biden, Hania, Kodo Anhisnia, Halate out the offer. Dina Snigi Yakot Yakodasa. Aranat ya Johnny Hikani Hidna Ape. Da ist Donat Ani Kenda Zon Zel Endo Kenda Zon. Hot ya be Chidi Kato da Ilia, Bedini, Nahashni, or the Skiroshin, the Nani Glini, okay with Ingi. Ata Inos Nido, Share Lanka Shaho. So Conso Shin Hitch Hasito left the Sister Dr. Ophelia Fowler, which you commissioner. Kela, da.
Yeah, shana kwan hitcha heinze ido in life. Ba hen niten do he kodo kwijin na katsotil zendo tahni ish. Ko nasnana kodo kena dasutahi Myron Lizer she kodo banadi ashiyash na nahoji. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Fowler, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. All those on the call. I am the Vice President, Myron Lizer. Comanche Nishle, Tolhana, Basis Chin, Do Comanche Deshache, Clash de Chanel. It's good to be with you all here on the Central Agency American Recovery Plan meeting. So thank you for Western Agency leadership and all those on the call. I appreciate it. Scripture says that to commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established. Another translation says that your plans will be successful. So that's our earnest plea and our prayer from President and myself and all leadership that your plans, everyone within the central agency and all of the various chapters, that your plans for ARPA and the monies that's coming to be successful and bringing projects to fruition, much needed projects. So there have been many pleas for you all to have a seat at the table. Well, here we are, meeting on that very thing. We're talking recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. And, President Nez has mentioned Joe Biden, President Biden, and their theme was Build Back Better. And it is a great theme, but building back means that you've been somewhere. So for our Navajo Nation and for Indian country, we've been behind the times for decades. And now I've coined this the great catch up. So as a vice president of the Navajo Nation, we have the ability to advocate, and we have been advocating to catch Navajo Nation and Indian country back up with the times that we see all across America. This pandemic has really magnified our issues. We have, and we need broadband like yesterday, right? This pandemic has shown us that because of our children, our elders with predisposed health conditions, that in this pandemic, telehealth capability is of the utmost importance now. Teleeducation and virtual classroom settings is of the utmost importance right now. So we've learned a lot in this pandemic, and now we have the real opportunity to advance those measures to bring internet and Wi-Fi capability to the farthest reaches of our Navajo Nation. That is our goal here. And not only broadband, but also water, right? The best way to mitigate the virus was to clean your hands, sanitize consistently, to clean your common touch areas. So water was integral from the get-go. And those that didn't have water, then they were fighting this virus with two hands behind their back, seemingly. And so water is really needed, water infrastructure, bringing water to those rural areas on our Navajo Nation that we know as the Netha. Power, electricity to those rural areas as well. So we can very well bring a lot of those infrastructure to every citizen on the Navajo Nation, and that is our goal. We also talked about our great need to have economic development. Well, during this pandemic, our people have had to travel a great distance again, still, and to potentially infect themselves in a border town with a differing mitigation protocol than our own here on the Navajo Nation. You know, whether they masked up or not, social distancing, large crowd gatherings, and the like. Within our own bubble, if you will, we can create an economy potentially for the next pandemic, whenever that may be. But keeping our people safe is our ultimate plan and our goal. And so developing an economy here with businesses that our people readily travel to border towns. You know, we have great need for furniture stores, appliance stores, for lumber and building material, for oil changes, for that matter, car dealerships and the like. Our people can stay here on the nation for that, and we all win. By Navajo, by local has never been more apparent than it has been in this pandemic. The need to keep our people home, create our own bubble here, and still be able to live and not endure a drop service in drop level of service in retailing. And we've seen all of those issues play out during this pandemic. And so we have the real great need to advance many of those. And that is our Nez Lizer administration's priority. And it has been from day one on our Not a plan, where the voice of the people rang out loudly. And we adopted those points as our priorities. And so we go forth now. Nothing's really changed. No excuse for being in this pandemic for a year. But with all these monies that's coming to the Navajo Nation, we thank you all for being a part of this meeting. We need your prayers to go forward and to develop a spending plan. We need leadership to all come together and help bring these needed projects to fruition. Again, we're all in this together. Let's make it happen. Your prayers, with your hard work and diligence, and with meetings like this here. So again, we appreciate Jonathan Nez, our great leader, his exemplary leadership in this fight against COVID-19, and all of those, even our cabinet members and all the department program directors. We all need one another. So thank you, Dr. Fowler, and I'll give you back the floor. Yeah.
Kadan hichahananin si nida nakaheni nakahehasan anasla an heha nasnana eya kudo speaker Seth Damon just on kabahan nasindole aja edo sahalle pan alte ako eshi eya kujishito babi gata selin ko ade that's Colin Osla Chief of Staff Shirley Yazi, are you on the line? Anybody from legislation? Then la ko ajashi sto nahataba alte aj to asahalle pan alte nasnana e yadi khashkebas anjishama Chief Justice Joanne Jane sto bananas holon benda ko aden that's she yaja tinitanana to Stephen at City. Are you on the line? Mr. at City? No,
This is Steve at City. Can you hear me?
Oh, Shiyash, go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, yeah. Nan Shema. Yade Chinanta, representatives of the Chinle Agency Council, Shay Stephen B. at City, Administrative Director of the Courts in Chinle from within the Navajo Nation Judicial Branch. And on behalf of Honorable Joanne B. Jane, our Chief Justice, I want to extend a welcome. Thank you for your time this afternoon, your interest, and for your comments and questions that you will be sharing with this group. From the Judicial Branch, we have 13 courts, and in the Chinle Agency, we have the Chinle Judicial District, in the heart of the middle of our reservation, and then over to the west in Pinion, we have the Dislejin Judicial District, and those courts have remained available and open throughout this whole pandemic. The whole judicial branch has been operating since last March 2020 at a essential services level. We've been required to stay open to address emergency needs of our people, and also to hear essential cases that are statutorily required. So many of our employees have been working on reduced work schedules or staggered work schedules, but our offices have remained open. But we've moved to doing all of our business over the telephone or through the computer. And it's been a challenge, so we want to express our appreciation for all of the patience that you've had working with our branch over the past year, and we want to let you know that we are planning to reopen and eventually get back into more and more face-to-face service provision for your court needs. Also for your, if you want to talk to our peacemaking program or you have to discuss issues with the probation and parole services, they're all preparing for reopening. We did take advantage of the CARES Act last year, and we used a little under $2 million of those funds to help do our response within the judicial branch, to help protect our employees and to protect our court buildings, and to do our part to mitigate or reduce the spread of the virus around our court building and in the community where we live and work all across the Navajo Nation. So we are now looking forward to the forthcoming American Rescue Plan fiscal recovery funds, and as we have been doing our work at essential services levels at a lower level than normal, we're looking to come back when this pandemic is declared to be over, and we want to come back strong. And so we like you, we're interested in how we might be able to use these funds. But the judicial branch is also very aware of all of the needs across the Navajo Nation, and we want to let you know that we cooperate and we support all of the other needs that will be coming forth and looking for support from this American Rescue Plan. But we also will be looking to do our part to help with the recovery across the entire Navajo Nation. The courts will be very important to help move things along as the Navajo Nation looks to use these funds to do a lot of things that have not had the funding to do. So we want to let you know from all of our employees across all of our branches, from the Chinle Agency and also Dislejin Judicial District, that we're thankful and we want to continue to provide you with more and more services And so on behalf of our Honorable Chief Justice Joanne Jane, I just want to say yeah again, and we'll be listening in on all the conversation and would like you to understand that the judicial branch is going to be very cooperative, and we look forward to working with you to meet your continuing needs for our court services and our programs, peacemaking and probation and parole services. Otto, Jay Stephen at City, Administrative Director of the Courts, Donna Sinigi, Twa He Cleaning Nishle, Otto Ashi Edish Ja, Twatsot Ni Edish Ching, Twitching Edish Nella, Nenshle. At this time, I'll give the floor back to Dr. Fowler. Yeah, Shema, Dr. Fowler.
Oh, ich habe Shiyaj Ado on human Lini Bahanadzi, ich habe Ado Nanish in to Podoba Hennitzen, Ado Nakayat Ejini, Ade. A Koyat Eshik Edoshin, Kodoshin, ya, ich habe Hidini, no less Tatnas, no Sini, Ado Kayapanat, Ani, no Sini, Ado Nazloshi. Benat ani no sini ado ostkaje tuneshji benat aksatan ledan hitoche ako here ni hidini do les ado due to the content of the information at a presentation hichitas net do les Asian PowerPoint ako ajanas nishi ASC CSC da no sini chapter coordinator chapter manager dan sini shi asan hichapatalia adon hikadocha adre tatnas letan lini but that was other page basa and no senita is no sign hit or here. Other hashino sanshi bendato dana san his houses nation kojahanata so gives eight a kodi kodo is like care when we're gonna all be muted. Here had it just endless question and answers about how Jesus and the needs. Okwande dik at BHE since there's a bit BHE web station a comment section gonna chat section yet gonna not the dish kiss on AB it all sleeps Ajo it's he's not on Atilate not ani than Linny la Aja in the Ado an his Linny the Bahos Yashik Edos the Ihidilzen will Yenny hinge kid ashkon the banan here noshkan. Ni 18 his nahas ango o you and the has tea. Ado a teen la ado tin ish trota. Raishin bit the hoye aj jo any hin hidden a bafan top keso babanaha ashi. A codichinly agency kahot zoja aj esahale, but nahas ano his start at that. Ako ashi ni histo na nasla job na ado sahoshi ya oshi yo sahod ta akod na halende jon na the desh kisn so no so ado na hoji jo ado bi ka petan hito nene jo to adit ya pesqui ata anas ka ata isa netle to le to di hot ben na hota sa netle na pa ako nasen Ado nasko net nijishe andle islahalle pes nahas anoshi islahnane kleto le Asian kwa nahaba ako nosendo le ado wedding process station ni ashonde jason sta okoti na atik hit pesko artishni tra ta haljinje na atik hit yashik edos na ashonde nahaba ako nosendo le nijono that is nichini agency na chona khashni shikodo a cook Ashitnas Nana Doles, a Kodo update of Navajo Nation Cares Act funding. A Shiyaj Leonard Sosi. Mr. Sosi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Fowler. And Yate President, Vice President, Chinle Navajo Agency, chapter officers, officials, and staff. Sheikh Roshdi Chirot Ho Kanin Shle, Aronanish, Ajay Basha Shina Shineda Shik. I created Naida Shinale, the Kohashid Ada Kashi Beda Kedo. Arodi or Kilib and Nanishade Ablegana Zajiba in Kashnet, Koro, the CARES Act funding update. We are talking about two funds today, in the presentation. One is the CARES Act Fund, and the other is the American Relief Rescue Plan Fund. So what I'll be talking about is the CARES Act, and later other presenters will talk about the ARPA Fund. For those that are not able to see the PowerPoint presentation, I will talk about the amount of allocations of CARES Fund received from the U.S. Treasury, and then the Navajo Nation Council resolutions and approved by President Nez appropriating the CARES Fund for various projects and services.
Mr. Sosi, we're unable to hear you. Hello, Mr. Sosi, are you there? Sean, can anybody hear me? Kwanda here and his but not the ba here needs an ado ya or you put it on Hanada I guess a kokodoshi nasko net nijiti any the bahwish na even not nana here nan he need or less I can't nas little sini due to the message due to the content of the message the PowerPoints. We get some assistance from ASC, CSC, coordinators, chapter manager, Danasini. Edo Saton, he cut another ja. I don't know on the at A5 presentation, Okay, those of you that have questions on regarding some of these presentations, you're more than willing to post your question on the chat session, but please remain muted. Don't try to unmute yourself. Aro ikidil zanin hinch kechik edo shidene aro hashinon sla ani o yugo and the has it do joban top case shik edo shidene di aj hol jijo question and answers bahol atat the haljinich kwa an has ado les ha ila ben ya atat the haljinich ejene o ye khoni yushi dana sende akwande do adi de ya sa les anas shi sa nadi les do na babe eskisnadi nito na bikina ne iskito. Otero le konask at Mr. Sosi. We'll go ahead and give you the floor, Mr. Sosi. You may continue. You may proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Fowler, and I apologize for the technical difficulties. As I was stating, the Navajo Nation received 3 allocations. That is because the CARES Act gave direct assistance to Indian tribes, and including the Navajo Nation. And this was based on a formula developed by U.S. Treasury. President Naz certified the data that was submitted to U.S. Treasury portal, and this resulted in the largest distribution to an Indian tribe. So Navajo Nation got over $714 million. And then the Navajo Nation Council in June started with passing resolution in cooperation with the Office of the President. And these resolutions were signed by President Naz and Vice President Leiser. The first resolution in June, CJN 4720, appropriated over $21 million. And then the second resolution, CJN 46-20, appropriated $41 million. The third resolution, which was the infrastructure resolution, CJY 67, appropriated over $475 million. And then the fourth resolution, CS 7320, appropriated over $127 million. And then the fifth resolution, CS 74-20, appropriated over $49 million to the hardship assistance account. Thereafter, in October, the Navajo Nation Council, Navig Committee, passed a resolution to reallocate these monies because of the deadline that was scheduled for December 2020. And so these reallocations were to the hardship assistance account, and monies that were not used were reverted into the hardship assistance account. So for resolution CJN 47, over $5 million was reverted to the hardship assistance. And for resolution CJN 46, over $24 million was reverted to the hardship assistance account. And then for resolution CJY 6720, over $194 million were reverted to the hardship assistance account. And finally, CS 73, over $67 million were reverted to the hardship assistance account. So the total for hardship assistance account was at $292 million. Over $292 million were reverted. You add the $49 million from resolution CS 74, and then the $1,000 that was used to set up the hardship assistance account, you come out with over $341 million was designated for hardship assistance to Navajo people. And then out of that, the Office of the Controller used that money to issue out hardship assistance checks. And over 294,000 hardship assistance checks applications were received, and 285,905 checks were issued by the Office of the Controller. Of that, 3,166 are still in remediation, meaning that they have problems with census number, address, and other things. So they're still working on that at the Office of the Controller. The balance became over $27 million for the hardship assistance account. And then there are some monies that are still out there, the CARES fund that was appropriated to Navajo Nation that have yet to be placed in hardship assistance account, and that is over $19 million. And then there are also open commitments out there for debts that the Navajo Nation became obligated, and that is over $2 million. And then there's an interest that was added to the account in $465,000. So in the end, the CARES fund balance became today, as of April 26, $44,673,500.73. So all of this that they're still working with, and it looks like Navajo Nation will be able to spend it all because the CARES Act deadline has been moved to December 2021. So this will allow for Navajo Nation to pretty much zero out, and no reversions will probably happen back to the federal government. And I'll go back to you, Dr. Fowler. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, she asked Kodo based on Raji Ben Gitnai that CARES Act. Ten hitch that Uncle RJAD Ashatson Lily Ain Lady Nichits of Arjashin the Sabeta Ako UN hidden Bachos in those Abachonatalia upon the As Art Aya Bachita Desa Asian Kodon Hapa Honason. Other the base was an Linido Sabeta Mohitahi Arjito Hashin Sukoyan Hasna Ako here actually Nana nas ya kodo ya ha bikit it hando ha it's under ni the batch need and lessons learned from CARES Act. Our Chief of Staff, Mr. Paulson Chaco Shiaj na Navajo Jish. Mr. Chaco. Eshi so hashin soko yanana eshi kedo shidna hashin soko shi bananish hasli koti lessons learned well yeni ni o you ya ho ye nan hines trado betado oho it's after ni hashin soko do bash need and koti funding and guidelines station cares at you go these staff that yehi projects that is at ni hashin soko kodo do bash need and nasco net nije bash niso nish ye kon now procurement procurement hashin soko regulations sad behas ani dan liniki jo diki kodo yen hisnas na akoti kwa summary in $714 million. Johone na yan hitchite akwande chido ile has taden and desert chido ni peso you yahne la hitchite taho ado the bash teho ado deadline that his chido deadline the you adon sanas that they start the old skis of an chest na long. Esta area upon the Nasco Nejati Hajo that the non is the Dr. Yellowman Nagad Aja Kodoshin Saya Nahodone Okok at Mr. Chaco D.A. summary Bikedogi she and his Kodol Mr. Chaco.
Yeah, Shema. President and also Vice President. Yeah, auto Tanas de Licodo. Inol Sagi, Chinle Agency chapter officials. Yeah, Kodo. The should edge Kodo don't ensinate I skating snow can ani, but she's chain. Chichigo Ada should change. Go back as a good national the Nenchle. I don't know as do I see now. Although here could Dr. Fowler could a anido could be partners the enough Sagi could so Macro so Gene could lessons learned no kodo e khashin so babe get that eat kodo the 714 million kodo 6 months chu don't eat get don't need but not e khashin so e ya kodo challenges e khashin so get that eat halen kodo e hotza do kodo legislative branch do executive do chapter we all had challenges moving into moving this money, 714 million through the Navajo Nation system. Koroshin and I that Kodoe Abaligan Kisbahatish Nahala Kodoe Naidi Kidit Ishi in La Kodoe Pahuido Alan Sombilina Kodo Skin Luchatas Anago Bahatish Abaligan Kachi with Asha Bahata no send Ashan and I. Ado these 6 months based on the hard debt, what's Hilo Chudon don't need. One of the reasons that one of the challenges for legislative was the guidance, the federal guidance. The federal guidance was not given to us clearly by how the money was going to be used. Was it for water line? Could water line projects be used? The monies could be used for water line, power line, could be used to purchase equipment. Don't get wrong, our legislation, executive side, we couldn't get the appropriate information, a lot of the projects that were out there. Then also, some of the projects for the chapters, those waterline projects, bathroom additions, internally the legislative passed legislation for the deadline it on days uneven kaigi on some of these projects because we didn't get the official word from Washington that the deadline could be moved to 1 year. We couldn't get an official response, so that's why some of these projects were put on hold. The next slide on administrative and project management. Our division directors, all of them were tasked with moving all of these projects through the tribal government system. We didn't have additional staff to do that. OMB, Fish and Wildlife, Division of Community Development, Division of Health. Staff, we didn't have any staff to move some of this. So I see up and down the need to concentrate on moving $714 million worth of projects. Next slide, project listing. You projects from chapters. We had some chapters that went to legislative, to the speaker's office. We had lists that were coming in from the enterprises. We had lists that were coming in from the divisions. You project, you see, because we didn't have one centralized location to gather all this information. Today, moving forward, we do have a centralized list in Dr. Mielman. We have. That's why we're reaching out to the chapters on their project list using the ICIP. Divisions, all the divisions, water resources, NECA, one central location. So we have an idea of what that list is going to look like, and that's what's going to be presented over to leadership, president, and the speaker and the council. So, out of the next slide, procurement and contracts. Moving contracts through the process, through the 164 164 process. President Speaker's office. Right now, how to make that improvement on the 164 and also the contracting process. We need to improve that move an additional $1 billion through the Navajo Nation procurement system. Next slide, we have project development phase. The shovel-ready projects. What is shovel-ready? There's a question on that, and we identified what that shovel-ready means. First one is project planning, project planning, aka preliminary engineering, needs assessment, archaeological environmental clearance, home site lease, that's a business site lease. So today project planning design nana building and that engineering that in the second project design phase nana. The final one is project construction. We have the engineering firm and also the contractors. Contractors. That's what the project construction phase. So project development phase. Shovel ready. Some of these projects that came in were not shovel ready. We had to move some of those projects. We lost some of the money through the CARES Act because they were not shovel ready. And a good example is the solar projects. We had over 30 million that was allocated by the council for solar projects, but we didn't have all of the required documents. We had to move some of those solar projects and had to give money back to the hardship program. On the project and development phase. And then finally, chapter coordination or chapter consultation. This last project, let's see. Chapters in some of these projects did not make it to the finish line before the December 30th deadline. Right now, what we're doing is these meetings that we're holding with Division of Community Development issue. Chapters the projects projects Dr. Fowler, and I'll give the floor back to you. Yeah.
Naval Department of Transportation, Mr. Silversmith, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Dr. Fowler. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Fowler, and everybody, all listeners who are on this afternoon's teleconference call. Appreciate your attendance this afternoon. And good afternoon, Chinle Central Agency, all of you out there, our chapter leaderships, and everybody out there who's participants in this call. President Nez, Vice President Leiser, 24th Navajo Nation Council, Speaker Damon, chapter leadership again, judicial branch, and all of our community leaders. You're all part of this plan, this overall plan as we advance our Navajo Nation. Garrett Silversmith, and I wanted to share with you this afternoon, continue on and carry what the message that Chief of Staff Chaco had shared with you this afternoon. And that's the additional lessons that we learned, what we experienced during this CARES Act era. So I'll be sharing that with you in the next 10 to 12 minutes. So Chinle Central Agency, let's move on to the next slide. Back in June of 2020 of last year, President Nez, Vice President Lizer, and key leaders from the Navajo Nation, we submitted a infrastructure white paper that details the content, the change, the request for our federal laws, regulations, and policies that applies to all our infrastructure needs, what we needed to change, what we needed to revise in terms of our development for utility lines, housing, other economic development structures, utilities, telecommunications, and also transportation. So that was all condensed into this document last year, and we submitted it on, and we advanced it to the Trump-Pence administration last year. So that was received, and we met with follow-up meetings with that administration's team. Most notably, we met with Secretary Bernhardt, then the Secretary Bernhardt for the Department of Interior. So that was a positive outcome as well. In this white paper, we also emphasize anything that requires the right-of-way, environmental compliance, the nation's stance, the nation's viewpoints, and how we should change it, make it different, make it more favorable to us as we progress with our projects. So that was the content of that paper. Next slide, please. Additionally, in this topic here, in this white paper, we primarily focus on two key areas in this white paper. That was a list of proposed revisions in federal law or regulation. Also, the list of proposed changes in our federal policies. I'll give you some examples there. Of course, we wanted to change in the NEPA process. We wanted our sovereign immunity to be addressed further advanced. We wanted our right-of-way application to be changed. And up even so far as changing our grazing permitting information. So that was all part of what was contained in that document. Moving on, fast forward to this year, this calendar year. As late as a month ago, within the last 2 weeks, the another Navajo road emergency, a transportation white paper that was created by President's office and Vice President's office, and also with the assistance of our Navajo Nation Washington office, Ms. Santee Lewis and her team. This was a paper that was compiled and emphasized in the focus on the transportation white paper, focus on our transportation needs. It was submitted recently to the Biden-Harris team, this administration. So, and additionally on top of that, we provided to also some other leaders there, the DC leadership. And now we're beginning to share that document here locally with our county, our state, and our federal partners here. Most recently, if you've been following the OPVP website, the president's website, we recently met with Navajo Region Bureau of Indian Affairs. Next slide. So I want to go on and continue what also was contained in this document. It was about six key components that was in this document, in this white paper. One, of course, was the change for the environmental compliance system, and a consensus definition for all of us, for us to apply for the definition of road maintenance. Also, the tribal priority allocation funds and how it should apply to usage on tribal routes, specifically focus on tribal routes aside from BIA routes. Then we also wanted our secretarial oversight lesson from Department of Transportation and Department of Interior. We also wanted to implement the standalone tribal bridge program as well. It's something new, but we want to go in that avenue and create such a program where we have funds specifically for our 179 bridges that's part of our Navajo Nation. Next slide, please. So as we move from what we have experienced and learned in the CARES Act era, going into the American Rescue Plan Act era, we want to distribute these funds as far as funding the projects that are transportation projects that will be ready immediately within the next year to year and a half. Also, we want to provide and distribute these funds equally throughout all our 5 agencies. We want to apply these funds to the most frequently traveled and roads that are in our worst condition. Items D through H will be applied strategically in this manner. We want to address our bridges, like I mentioned. We want to provide pavement preservation meaning highway pavement maintenance. We want to improve our earthen roads / dirt roads. We want to address our shortfalls Right now, we have a 5-year plan that lists all upcoming construction projects that'll be happening in the next 5 years. But in these projects, we run across projects where we are short of funds. So we want to apply some of these ARPA funds to these projects. Finally, we want to develop new routes across all 5 agencies. Next slide, please. Additionally, miscellaneous, what's been happening in this American Rescue Plan era is we recently met with Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg and his staff, along at this meeting with Deputy Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs, Mr. Orlando Teller. So the transportation white paper, we met with Mr. Buttigieg and his team, and that was another positive outcome where we addressed everything with him and his team. Also, want to bring to attention to the Navajo Nation is an upcoming separate relief highway funding scenario that will be given to all the tribes across this great country of ours. $114.5 million will be given to tribes. The Navajo Nation will be receiving $16.5 million of these funds. What's unique about it is that we can only apply these funds for maintenance purposes. So we can't use any of these funds for construction purposes, only maintenance. Next slide, please. As we advance our nation into improvements in our transportation infrastructure assets, it's going to be difficult. There's going to be challenges and risk associated with what we're trying to do. Some of those here that you see on the screen, there's 9 key areas there that we want to focus. Obviously, it might go beyond these 9 that I'm explaining, but I want to share with you some of these 9. It's going to be important, those new construction routes that we start to implement here soon. We got to secure those right away. Right away, right now, is presently taking us anywhere from 6 months to 3 years at times just to process a right away. Once we build all these new routes, we improve our bridges, we improve our dirt roads / earth roads, we improve our paved highways. There's got to be some form of pavement, some form of funds set aside to maintain these 5 years from now, 2 years from now. So those are some of just a couple of challenges and risks that we recognize here that we can see in the long term. Next slide, please. My last slide here represents our Navajo Nation transportation success. Here you'll see six projects that we completed here with Navajo Division of Transportation, our partners at Navajo Engineering Construction Authority, Bureau of Indian Affairs, Office of the President, Vice President, President Nez, Vice President Leiser, our 24th Navajo Nation Council, and also input from our chapter leadership and our community leaders. This is something we should try to attain, aspire to, look forward to. Projects that you see, such we have displayed here. These are projects that we are capable and are soundly realistic here in our future here when we receive these American Rescue Plan Act funds in 2021. So on behalf of the division, again, I wanted to thank all the important and esteemed chapter leaders there that are out there in Chinle Central Agency, President's Office, 24th Navajo Nation Council, all of you who are participating in this call and where we go from here. Thank you very much.
Not so great, but it's outside about navigations. Nas American Rescue Plan Act presentation. Kodo Chijan Lini Kinahal Navajo Nation Washington Office. Santee Lewis. Ms. Lewis, you have the floor.
Yeah, Shema, Dr. Fowler. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Santee Lewis. I am the Executive Director for the Navajo Nation Washington Office, and I'll be covering 5 slides today. The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, or commonly referred to as ARP or ARPA, was signed into law March 11th by President Biden and is a $1.9 trillion stimulus bill designed to help the United States recover from the economic and health impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Prior to the ARP, Congress passed the CARES Act as well as the Consolidated Appropriations Act to help the federal government respond to the ongoing pandemic. So the ARP is nearly the fourth major legislative item in a list of COVID-19 pandemic legislation. There is over $31.2 billion available for tribal governments and communities. And for purposes of today's conversation, I'll just be covering, highlighting a few of them. Next slide, please. So first on this list, and I believe that the president has and others have actually touched upon this, but this is the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund. It's much like CARES, but under CARES, only $8 billion was specifically set aside for tribal governments. This fund is much larger and more than double that amount. So $20 billion is available for tribal governments. $1 billion is to be allocated equally among the 574 federally recognized tribes, and the remaining $19 billion is to be allocated by the Department of Treasury based on how they choose to allocate those funds. The Department of Treasury has completed tribal consultation on how to allocate FRF funds, so we anticipate those funds being distributed to tribal governments fairly soon. Similar to the Coronavirus Relief Fund, under the CARES Act, the FRF funds can be used on specific purposes. For example, this fund can be used to respond to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19 or its negative economic impacts. These funds can also be used to respond to workers performing essential work during the COVID-19 public health emergency by providing premium pay to eligible workers of the tribal government that are performing such essential work, or providing grants to eligible employers that have eligible workers who perform essential work. Funds can also be used to replenish lost revenues of tribal governments to provide essential services due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And lastly, the funds may be used to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. FRF funds may cover costs incurred by December 31st, 2024. And just briefly, I want to touch upon the third line item, funding to IHS. IHS was allocated over $6 billion, and those funds are intended to support the delivery of healthcare and the operation of Indian Health Services facilities. Similarly, the Bureau of Indian the Bureau of Indian Affairs is allocated $900 million. The majority of these funds will fund essential government services such as public safety and justice, social services, child welfare services, and other related expenses. BIA will likely provide the majority of the funding through the tribal government line, allowing tribes to reprogram funds based on their needs. The distribution will be based on tribal enrollment data. Next slide, please. Thank you. BIE will be allocated $850 million. This fund will be allocated by the BIE director for programs and activities of the 183 funded BIE funded K through 12 and our tribal colleges and universities. BIE distributed these funds, and yesterday the Navajo Nation announced that that the Navajo Nation, schools across the Navajo Nation will be receiving over $200 million. These funds can be used to develop and implement a learning management system and related information technology. Funds can also be used to make facility-related improvements to ensure adequate ventilation and support for distance learning and social distancing. I'm going to go to the second line item, housing and urban development. For housing assistance, $700 million will be allocated, and these funds will remain available until September 30th, 2025. $450 allocated to the Native American Housing Block Program, and $280 million allocated to the Indian Community Development Block Programs. For each of these funds, they are designed to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19 activities. And for both of these allocations, costs incurred after January 21st, 2020 are allowable. Slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So last spring, to reduce the transmission of coronavirus in all of our communities, most of our nation's schools and libraries shut their doors and transitioned to virtual learning. And many of our students experience a homework gap, which means that they are not capable of accessing remote learning. And in many cases, libraries are locations where individuals access the internet. And so with the with the closure of schools and libraries, for some individuals, they have lost all broadband access. So in response, Congress allocated over $7 billion for the Emergency Connectivity Fund to reimburse costs associated with eligible equipment, eligible schools, and libraries. Eligible equipment includes Wi-Fi hotspots, modems, routers, devices that combine a modem and router, and connected devices. Eligible schools and libraries include tribal elementary schools, tribal secondary schools, and tribal libraries. Currently, the FCC is promulgating rules and recently sought comments on the Emergency Connectivity Fund for educational connections and devices to address the homework gap during the pandemic. Comments were due April 23rd, 2021, and more information will soon be available. The second line item, State Small Business Credit Initiative, $500 million will be allocated and is to be divided equally among tribal governments using a formula established by the Secretary of Treasury that considers employment and economic data. More information will be shared when it becomes available. Next slide, please. Thank you. $498 million for the Homeowner Assistance Program. This amount represents a 5% set aside for tribal governments to mitigate financial hardships with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic. Funds may be used for mortgage payments, mortgage payment assistance, utilities, internet services, homeowners insurance, etc. Applications are now being accepted by NHA. So if you know of anyone who owns a home and needs assistance, financial assistance, please encourage them to reach out to NHA. And in the interest of time, I am not going to cover the last three line items. However, there is more information in the detail column, which are grant opportunities. Next slide, please. And just to recap, the American Rescue Plan provides a historic amount to Indian country and to all Americans. But specific to tribal governments, over $31.2 billion is available. And I encourage everyone to take a look at the law. The law does prescribe a lot of deadlines. There's also ARP is the statutory language. And so when we're talking about what these funds can be used for, that's at the very high level. But the agencies still have to come up with rules on providing a little bit additional guidance. So when you hear our division directors talk about we are still waiting for guidance, that means that we're waiting to hear from agencies about additional specifications on how and on what these funds can actually be spent on. But with respect to deadlines, there's the deadlines for releasing funds. There's just a variety of them. Some of them talk about within 60 days of the enactment. Some of them are 45 days from the date of enactment. So there is a wide range. But what the Navajo Nation public should anticipate is that some of this money, you will start to see money come out from the federal government to your communities and to the Navajo Nation. So don't hesitate to work with each of the divisions presenting today, because they'll have more information about the resources that are going to be available to you. So again, all the resources are either going to be distributed via allocations to the tribal government, or there'll be grant opportunities where our chapters or other organizations can actually pursue those separately. And in closing, I just want to mention that if you know of a Navajo small business owner who's looking for additional financial assistance, more information can be found at navajoeconomy.org. And that concludes my presentation. So I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Fowler. Thank you.
Na he shita aden chuna hun ani he adona nation ani e kina kede ade nikichuma jod na ade e na ki alalanj da inish ade ko he nasna e ya kuda division of community development shita Dr. Pearl Yellowman she ade e nikis nahad na dole Aro kuda di ini nikis chutas ani sa na bede desh na sina e di webex ulini Ajishin hiche dosis aro ya kodoti bikero peshbahan sata behadis chan etrat hanchin hidini edo kodo ya peshbahan ben his quotation Dr. Paul Yellowman bikero Dr. Yellowman, you now have the floor.
Here, Dr. Fowler, aro yate. So yeah, thank you to Honorable President Jonathan Nez, Vice President Lizer, Speaker Damon, and Madam Chief Justice for those opening remarks and your leadership. Thank you to my colleagues on the line, Division of Economic Development, INDOT, Division of Natural Resources, Human Services. Thank you all for being on the call. And to our central agency, our honorable central agency leaders, council leaders, and to our chapter officials, Yate, chapter staff, thank you. We also have staff on the call too as well from CPMD, ASC, SPPS staff on the call as well. I appreciate all of the content and all those who are on the call. Shay Pearl Yellowman and Shay Adon Shlinigi A Senabithin Shlendog is a Shan Bashishin Skobahanda Shicharo Hanaga Neda Shinala Aro Twinin is Dizaden Nasha. I just want to give an overview. I've shared this presentation several times before and also have been sharing some updates to Central Agency Council and to the 24th Navajo Nation Council through the Nabik committees. And we've been hosting the Division of Community Development, CPMD. We've been hosting some technical hours throughout the work week and orientations. The presentations that that was presented before you today will be posted on the Division of Community Development website. We also have additional information on the portal submission user guidelines are also on the website. Information on project listing and project checklists are on the website as well. We encourage you to go to our website and become familiar with the content. There's also the ARPA page dedicated to ARPA and the information on ARPA, the American Rescue Plan, as well as on the website. So next slide, please. Again, just to highlight the Division of Community Development, we've created an internal team. Many of the chapters you have already reached out to these teams. You've requested for some technical assistance, maybe from Ms. Denise Copeland, maybe from members of ASC or CPMD. We refer to this time as mobilizing. We're preparing and mobilizing. We're getting ourselves ready for the ARP. ARP funds have not arrived, nor have the U.S. Treasury guidelines. Number 3, when we start to move into a uniform project listing plan, that means when we start to review all of the projects that have been submitted into the portal, they will all be uniform in a way that we can review them and then start to present or start to draft up an expenditure plan for our leaders to review. We're not there yet. We're still utilizing this time. The month of April really has been dedicated to reaching out to all 110 chapters. Some of the coordination has already begun, and that's coordination with 110 Navajo Nation chapters, the 5 agency council, the 24th Navajo Nation Council, Office of the President and Vice President, the Washington, D.C. office, and a firm called Holland and Knight. We've also have been extending our partners or extending the list of partners. Some of our partners include NTUA, Hamas Electric, Continental Divide, NECA, IHS, Water Resources with the Division of Natural Resources, NHA, REMA, Navajo Utility Authority, and NDOT. That list is still growing because of the chapter comments that we're receiving and the feedback. Many of the chapters are requesting for a meeting with NTUA and IHS for bathroom additions. Some of the chapters are requesting for a meeting with just NDOT to go over their road listings. Some of the chapters are requesting for a meeting with water resources to address some potential drought concerns and ranching concerns. So these partners that we get back from the chapters, the feedback that we get back from the chapters, our partner list is growing. Next slide, please. Here's an example, or here's what we're looking at as far as our project listings. We already have projects listed at the chapters. We already have projects that many of the chapters have through their ICIP. We also have projects at CPMD that include CPMD, CHID, ICDBG, New Mexico projects. Those projects may include projects with NTUA, Hamas, or Continental Divide, IHS, Water Resources, and even projects in the Navajo Hopi land area. As we kind of grow up a little bit more, we have regional projects that are housed, some are housed here at DCD, but we have some regional projects. Those include the Cutteral Lateral project from the Gallup to San Juan area. And those include also like broadband.
available. Our current infrastructure projects and then regional projects. The next slide. We do have work sessions on ARPA infrastructure listing. We do have some CSM project, New Mexico project, OU is several addressing the yes. So within that area, the infrastructure listing, the uniform project listing, as it states there was a memo that was sent out back in April, and there are some priorities. The application process. The email that is created is provided there. And then understand there was a deadline back in April. And these are related projects that include power line, housing, house wiring, water line, bathroom addition, warehouses, rural addressing. DCD will provide a follow-up on information on ARPA guidance. With that, they are continuing working with the 110 preliminary planning with the chapters, and then there are timelines. Next slide. The introduction of the application as stated, that has been extended, and then they are looking at prioritizing the 110 chapters, prioritize top projects listing. The technical assistant is provided. Presentation guidance, as we all have been informed. Based on linear criteria so we are awaiting the guidelines that will be presented by the Treasury guidelines. Next. And that's for the April. And for the May, pretty much looking at the guidelines, the chapter mobilization, the technical support will continue to be there. The plan proposal review to attend the next slide. ROD June ARPA planning, the American Rescue Plan Act expenditure plan. Develop the Navajo Nation Capital Improvement Plan and capital budget with a list of scores from the highest. Our procurement packages there, like procurement, we want to work together and collaborate more with not only our chapters, but also within our internal process. DOJ, the OLC, OMB, the budget and finance company, the infrastructure planning. Next. This is the application format, and then with that, it's divided into 8 sections. With those 8 sections, you have the funding application, the email address, project priority. There's the section 2 register. We need a point of contact, the declaration, and on down the line, out of the infrastructure listing, the DCD is working on the capacity plan and that non infrastructure is yen na hasna ido o chatas anako ko you go na tindo o shin you na atikit wala o ko na atikit lini pahuil ako les ya ko ne na atitesh kiss Ado Winch Yeto. I'm representing this chapter. I'm a chapter president, chapter vice president. Jokatae, which let the hatos 928-955-6645. So if you have a question, please call or text this number 928-955-6645. Na atetesh kiss na sunado hate sinzo e kwajati bichakhalnet. Nast a na kite b nast a ashla hastra di anona ashla e kwa so na kakuido na atikidi. Ado na jijo. If your question was not answered, we do respectfully request that you email arpa@nndcd.org. Jo ajo honana test. Ako if you had non-kidesh nido leshikedo shidene ado
Dr. Feller, I'm back on.
kodo nihizaden lini ba hoshia shikedo shidene. I think Dr. Yellowman's back on the line. I did kind of go over some of the highlight area of your presentation, and I'm not sure if you want to add any more areas. Dr. Yellowman, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I lost the computer connection, but I'm calling in now. So just where I left off, just letting the chapters know that we did extend the deadline. This was an internal deadline. Again, the ARPA funds have not arrived to the nation, and this is DCD working with the chapters to prepare and begin identifying those priority projects. We understand that your priority projects may involve communication with DED. For example, there may be a C-store or some type of an economic development project, or they may involve a roads project with NDOT. As such, we are having these types of preliminary meetings to initiate and begin those conversations of cross-referencing these listings. In addition, May 19th is the deadline we're looking at. The month of April was dedicated to reaching out to all 110 chapters. The month of May will be dedicated to really reviewing and vetting these projects. I just want to share the importance of what we're encouraging. We're encouraging shovel ready, but we understand that there's some projects that are not shovel ready. We understand that some projects came as a result of COVID. For example, the Navajo Nation identified a need for potential warehouses to hold safety and sanitation items, sanitizing items for all hazard materials as a result of COVID. So those would be specialty projects that have not been dedicated to a planning and design team or have not been properly packaged for ARPA. We understand that happens. There are some needs out there as a result of COVID or even just as a result of community need for those specialty projects that are not shovel ready. We ask that you continue to work with us on identifying some of those projects for your community and what we can do to help assist in preparing for those types of projects. When we say shovel ready, or when we say, when we identify clearances, I just want to share with you just a few of these clearances. These run from the archaeological and environmental compliances. Some are the biological studies and biological clearances, biological inventory report, environmental assessments, the FONSIs, the cultural resource inventory, cultural resource compliances, and even for housing, some of these housing needs, they need to require within the nation a home site lease. So there's extensive listings that are required based on the type of projects that you are selecting. And as such, we are trying to, one, reach out and be available to chapters for additional technical assistance. We do have technical assistance hours dedicated to chapters, chapter staff, and chapter officials to call in. That's Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. We do have chapters that have reached out to Denise Copeland and Shayla Draper for some one-on-one technical assistance on reviewing the ICIP listings at the chapter level and or submitting those projects into the ARPA portal. DCD also created the portal user guide. That's on the DCD website. And we're also getting great feedback and comments, and we appreciate that. We encourage questions to come in, and we encourage you all to reach out to us. I often leave my phone number and ask that you call or text me with your name and chapter so that we can respond. We've also been sharing an email address dedicated to the ARPA conversation so that we can field these questions. President Nez mentioned this morning a Q&A, or I'm sorry, a frequently asked questions fact sheet or questions to go out. We've been fielding these questions and we'll be working with OPVP to send out these frequently asked questions. A lot goes back to the U.S. Treasury guidelines. As you recall, last year, the CARES Act funds were highly restricted with strict deadlines. And we're hoping that the ARPA guidelines or the ARPA funds have a little bit more flexibility. We know that there's a 3-year timeline. But as far as the U.S. Treasury guidelines as to what is eligible and not eligible, we anticipate that to come to the nation. And as such, we want the chapters to be knowledgeable and updated on that. We want to be in better practice of reading that so that we have a better understanding of the ARPA funds. As opposed to last year, we encountered some challenges, and we did not maximize some of the funds allocated or appropriated to the chapters. We want a better experience and a different experience, and we want to ensure that when we review the projects for ARPA, that we present them to leadership for their decision and those appropriations. So that's where we advocate and prepare a expenditure plan that best represents each chapter's needs. And so we're still working towards that. We will keep the portal open, and we request that you continue to email CPMD for additional questions.
Hi, yes, can I speak
and
with Teresa?
technical assistance. So Dr. Fallow, I'll wrap up there and appreciate everybody on the call and many of you who've already been in communication with DCD. For those needing additional one-on-one or technical time, you can reach us through our email and my cell number. I'm not on the computer screen right now, so I can't type in my number, but my work cell is 928-259-0291. 928-259-0291. And if you could include in the text or the call your name and chapter. So thank you, Dr. Fowler and colleagues, and to Central Agency officials and chapter officials. Yeah.
Yeah, quite Nihifna Hussein Netto, yeah, Ntrago, Aro Koro, Kojishe, Yadi, Ishla is Ekodon, which represented that is Lado, and Hisn the Hasnet. A corner at the dish kiss, no sono, quite has Anko, Webex, Saadri, Hataso, gives Asian quite a chat. Yigi, RG, question, Yigi, be Osetole. Zada dog Steve Nasongo ya AA 928-955-6645 kapitamos Aro with kitten and hit up nest. A cost sahi yard Joe Deadman she saquani hitch at Hadodzi ko na huido a chiage ado such a ya na adish kid no so a ya Aj 928-955-6645 Aj was na ashwande na adikiko ado I dan his bells and go a ya or she nasko net nija is na initial yeni do if it isn't well yeni a nihini kedo le dog do ak at a ya at da shikedo shitna ashin tan nasko net nija if he's ni nisho le jo sa ni dan hit is nel project shin on you I don't but that ni sto sato manane do so ha nani kishin sato na biki hit les Mr. Deadman, are you on the line?
Yes, ma'am. Oh,
Okay, Shiyaj, you have the floor. Thank you for joining us.
okay, Shema. Although, okay, Shana, Tani, that is not fine. I did hot now, the little lineage hard, so although I enjoyed that, and I hit it, making us taking something not in the bus machine. For the training that should shade, right? That's another. Though here, and I didn't have the President Nes, though President Liza, though I did none. Atlantic Banso, the Nikon Hinanish. At the Sladon, he is Shannon at the Saturn Sago here. Kodoshi, Kodot Hartner, the isn't that deed in the story, isn't that deed in the street, you see, Bana or Khan, listen to Hasi, the whole. Eat I could nin hen da has ne khan nas dan hit ha na ad ha wan ho des ado todo ho des ado no se ne ke ya has ado ne dal kloshin he da had no do ni hit na dit hit ha ni to hit ha ni tan hit na has kain hit na here yo ne dan lin da hon hit na has ka das lin ko patan hin ne ta han ni je das da ho di da hot ego hon ko pa hin ne go ta shel ha sin lo ko do shi isha an Are pesa bena hone a leg in an hit iliako it ashin kodo ni hen as it kona rajen den tote das jingo the adults and kitchen does the I don't hit a team I don't the bridges yet and a jehiki club in the has the sado da jo cut that as ni so I see her station the has le I couldn't hear chin hit the how ni the how this story in that Jahan Kong a yabach and the Hui Teo that ye kid at them, the arrow in each and out is a link stock. As channels to be that, Ultra Naholia Arnit on Hina and Rita Nahotalia. Upon his end, the house has Leon. Or you say what in daily hot Zakon. I see a bit by Hinigo. Question that Kero that nest the adult carbon it been in Naniki equal then yet or little yen dog Nashabich and how this leak a conducted to this coin Hana low and they taught as Bagan Aj. Ado yen as Nashing that although what try Aj band all try isn't that so a company so he hand I need to add it that you Kododa ye dog got it art then so that in the with a so Kahasi look a lady in on hit Ilia Bishmas and base was a budget and Hutchin ye nada dog so ye can not that lad of the in Nash Benia Tato, the Nina or short or left in Yeshiko, Nihana Liako. Now I need his end has one has out on the then hidden Nasa and the Asan and the house a slight ego that's the Saunas Nez Na start that and the house can't. Did the cousin sagi, but that is not a sort is not a legal. Eben hitch in the hoti ho one I see yego. I don't let it. They own a yahika to asaya hika. So are the old basis. Basically, net eight has carded that shadow, said that the zin no. I could. Yen dog behita, I don't let of a gent has teaching no a that egoshi. Baska nadi just at Kahasi loho. They end or others that I kite and Zini eyes in he kite jet on dashes. The lad on the feet of the Nebina, I a corn between the with a corn hunt dashes, the link of Codedo in Washington. Dad, she eyes a year when he kite jail equatoria. Codon, his horn, neho did that, did not ne, though did a day nothing he has other no by Yaki Hokolji, excellent sago here. And I other year lad season ko ita iya ako laita chi na nisi Beso benyet le kun hidden ladan hidden ne ndar nishya. Dan na nishbe babto zi to na nishya da hasan. Sa bes the chi na tizus ba da hasan. Ado khona tsito. Ado tchochen ligo zo. Akot khalet ada anash what le. Ashe is louder than zo. Kwada be na sosi pa jo chelia da petole. Ado kodo aido na nispatan so taido. We need to work 24 hours. The here could go 7 days a week for such Saturday and Sunday on days nishabiga. Kodo saho e ani ade and now we need to be flexible. Yeah. Easy na nishiki because Saturday and Sunday dan dad nishako na nishibe sato nishkilo. Ana ki do na kina khaj da sa pesa be. As for today is you don't need ako the nash skinsko na nishko te biga. Do skinsko so so ado la sa is nisho. Di kwa ni ala yobe the nil ya kon da hasti. So it's an da hastia do biga. Ari nan ta da ya da na sta ko zone khas da ila kon te ya ado na bina nishibe sato ni so tan se so hasin hod. La da ya ta ari kha na zele na social sa hizel. That it was kind of darkness of the new I that con a said I last little Hitler sago. Cotishi are near the Shamakons in Hash kitten in it. I did about a net leho, beside it, no. So I don't and latte. And the squad or there, none the Chilier. But it are in his has still the shell to has it or ye, she did, the codo, Hana, then hit that needles in the hot doggy. I don't know that they how long the dots of the Zimbe enough me. So the Zimbe are the less at your least because maybe here and the Heshin does it but the Nezda, other Zibe Naharajata, other Kajin that 8 showed Ajata store. But it ever ebe Chanel ni tabe sen be Chanel ni hobiga, don't matter what's the deal. So I know nice that your listen on him and hospitals and the pendant. What's an honor because yeah, danko. It are his still the chef has in stone sago.
Ich has yash kwan hit ananzi sad ilinido a destiny ben hitchenzi ich ha ado agently agency ni hit the hot zogi ado tatnas neledo na tpanslini ich ha hidini dole ashi ni kodo alle epigios was la tata haljenjinin de dini hizadi edo kunzago bigata e bahunsen de jo or kisi big ya kodo kodine ado belagana achia de tito ben khafos yanti sa ben takwil ado ben khafanosen chikedo shne ako be bikit bikit to be yel ti sa tske jike lini ta hos ako she be ikidini zeno so yat shikedo shne Nanegik at Bengani, Low Mountain, then Shiajna Naho Jishole, Mr. Gani, I Bikedo A Ya Percy Deal, but not so. Okay, Miss Bengani, you have the floor. Bengani. Low Mountain, then. Mr. Ghani? Hello? Roger George, Low Mountain.
Dr. Fowler, can you hear me?
This is Mr. Ghani from Low Mountain.
Okay, Mr. Ghani. Oh, you have the floor, Shiash.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. All the way up to the President's office, Vice President, Speaker, and also all the staff that have presented the presentation here. And
listening to you with all the updates and everything else. I appreciate that you gave me the time. I'm hoping that I won't make it too long, but listening to everything that was said, I'm hoping that we have things that have been promised to us will be able to get done within 3 years timeline. My first question is about things that have been going on at my chapter level. Little Mountain Cell Tower has been started. It was unfinished, the project. There were materials still laying around over there, and hoping that our nation would open the doors for NTUA to finish those 3 projects that were supposed to be. Our children are in the needs of telecommunication, internet, and also broadband. That was my first one. My second one is Head Start, multi-purpose building with a warehouse, just like everybody else said, a specialty project, hoping that this infrastructure will be completed as soon as possible for us. And number 3 is roads. I have been seeing a lot of projects that have been project listing on roads. We just have one road that really needs to be upgraded or to be done. It has been on the list for about, I don't know how many years, just one road. And I've seen these project listing with 4, 5 projects on every chapter. And here we just have one. I'm just hoping that I'll have answers for that. My next one, my fourth one, is heavy equipment has been promised to us for, I don't know how long. It hasn't been done. We really need it for pandemic need, burial assistance. And also the water line. Some of them has never been completed. So we're always at the last end. My concern is we're the back burners of everything. I'm just hoping I'll have answers from the president. I'm hoping he's listening in. We have been supporting him since day one, from the day he went into office, and also the vice president. So is other people that have been in the office for this long. I have been in the office maybe just a couple of months. It's just months. So looking at my community, we're in dire need, hoping everybody else is listening. These are my concerns. I appreciate, maybe they can email us at Little Mountain Chapter or through the agency. I appreciate you listening to me. And I'm very thankful for all the hard work you guys are doing up at the Winter Rock offices, all the way to the president, and all the way to the White House. Thank you very much. And this is it.
Mr. Ghani, your concerns are well noted. We will share that with our leadership, and some of the questions that you have, your concerns regarding roads, heavy equipment, we'll respond to you by email. I know Dr. Yellowman is offline right now, but she is listening in as far as phones, and then we'll provide her have her provide a response to you by email. Shiaj. Percy Deal, Force Lake, Shiaj, Mr. Deal. If you're not speaking, can you please mute your phone, those that are not speaking? Mr. Deal.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, is this Percy Deal?
Okay. Oh, yes.
Oh, Shiaj, go ahead.
Hakashin do sha nagaitsen sada ada tshna shia ya da na kikutkhao da zna da shkildo da recommendation da shi koneriya da ada bishop na hon negi jadon khane tetla ato nda that the application nego na sosada ila sutsui Dr. Yellowman ko a computer ki is like nasho le to the ben hold ada to the go you la go na dikit different requirement surveys and EPA requirement and stuff like that, land clearance that hagida la go na dikit. So it seems like every project would need an engineer. Did good yabi gata did oda bound the kage do be gata. Kon the share hasin soko ya project so isla do and the kon isla na kis Canada, which is a bathroom addition for on the behalf of Force Lake in the Untitled Chapter. Do and do ya not an in shida. The reda not an in stone has she taught us the little bit has undone stone. Kadish jade ya Oda hati konde oh you now he about on snibin in that see to not sure quite don't hear that volunteers. I know that there are other volunteers throughout the area. This procurement process you see بلا تخاطر شيء يادي كي بلا دود لفيت بتشوف الشيء كويس لا كنا أتكت نغاية تتخاطر زندن شين ده تشنه نغاية نهاد يحد له emergency. Navajo Nation, they would declare a state of emergency. The county would declare a state of emergency. The state would declare a state of emergency. Then the FEMA, wait, because they would declare a state of emergency. For example, a road washout, bridge, indoors, a lot of those is waived now simply because it's an emergency. I would strongly encourage you to look at the going through all these emergency you have to declare in the county. You have to go through the county for the emergency declaration, and then the state governor, add on the FEMA by Tico. Then there is, FEMA can waive a lot of these requirements. That would really shorten the process. Just take for an example, the dependence card and the shingo. The you has that's an example I'm giving you. The better 2 or 3 hurt illegal. And that's the example I'm giving you. You see, Mr. President, you see, division director done Linigita. Today, now, Nikines, that is exactly what we want to do again in this next process. Mr. President Nez and Joe Biden, Joe Biden, that's exactly where we are at. Joe Biden, Canada, Hajo Ebanda, Igona, because Annie Kanda, Neldo, and that. I know there could be some requirement. I mean, there would be some waiver.
Oh, yeah, your questions are noted, and then we'll go to one more so we could have Dr. Yellowman provide a response. Shema Nanaho, Bessie Allen, and then after Ms. Allen, we'll have Dr. Yellowman provide a response to Low Mountain. Mr. Deal, and then Mr. Deal, thank you for your recommendation. Bessie Allen, Pinion Chapter, Shema. Ms. Allen? *6, she visited Shema. *6.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, and we're waiting on Bessie Ellen, *6.
Okay, finally.
Okay. Oh, now, Shema. Oh,
Thank you for the time. Ado yat eshnat ani ade daisnos aido that ani toha zande. Shida shijayaze, Mr. Nez, Ado Shiyashi, Mr. Lizer, and on division directors, so forth. It's ahead, Did quite all the information you gave, the top four that has to do with broadband, economic development, public safety, and judicial, auto roads. Those four should be nationwide projects. There's specific amount of money earmarked directly to the nation. Those projects should not be charged to the chapters. That would be my recommendation. The chapters at the local level, number one project should be water line all the way across this great Navajo Nation. That was the most critical one. Everybody knows how much water it was needed. Out in the remote areas. I'm from Pinion, Sihijin. We were the front lines, our chapter workers and myself, chapter officers. We actually went out there, we delivered food, we delivered water on our own. Volunteer. Water was the critical issue. Bottled water, so forth. So I think Navajo Nation, we need to get help to do the water line projects. Every 100% of our community should have some sort of running water. Number two, a power line. A lot of them don't have power lines. They try to get cell phones to do homework or online learning. These are critical with the broadband. That should be really pushed forward by all of you, the experts and Navajo Nation president level. And then the school, BIE got a lot of money. Public school, all they got is the regular impact aid, Washington, in lieu of no property tax. Impact aid, federal impact aid. Our kids, about 80 to 90% of our children are in the public schools. So I show this card teacher and try to get us some help at the chapter level. Ado I sin len tan hi ka don tan hi ka sata eha ledati nise. You're a certified chapter, you're on your own. Ado tan hito nene. We're all in this together. We're working for the Navajo people, whether we're volunteering or not. we need to work together. Nini ni no go yate adult or sadi or shahate. This is one thing I like about Nancy Goshkan. There's a lot of things that could be said. Thank you.
Yeah, Nikil join Annie Don Hitchain by Henson, Sisazido, ko Annie Tahonit Echo, Kodoshe Nata, Kanatzi, Dr. Yellowman, if you could provide some response to Low Mountain, Miss Bengani, Percy Deal, and our mother, Miss Ellen. Dr. Yellowman?
Yeah, Dr. Fowler. Mr. Ghani. Thank you for your questions, but I just respectfully want to respond. I know Delegate Kialan Begay has been advocating on behalf of your community, working with NTUA on addressing the cell towers. I know that last year we were working on those cell towers with Director Chris Pacenti as well, and he's on the line as well, taking notes and can provide some feedback too. So that's still an ongoing conversation. So we are aware of that with the cell tower and the need for the cell tower. Your community has done an excellent job in expressing the need for the cell towers. So we'll continue to work with NTUA on that. And then you mentioned the warehouse, and that is an important specialty project, and many chapters are raising those same concerns about the need for a warehouse, especially after what we've gone through last year and what we experienced. And then roads, we have NDOT, Director Silversmith on the line. And the purpose of these calls is for other divisions to hear similar concerns or similar projects that the chapters have identified as a priority. So I know Director Silversmith is on the line and taking notes. And here's where I just respectfully respond back to your last comment about the heavy equipment and being put on the back burner. We do a lot of work to reach out to the chapters, and I was on your chapter call last week, Low Mountain chapter call. We did have a conversation on the heavy equipment and the items that will be delivered there. We have over 300 items of heavy equipment still being procured and still being delivered to the Navajo Nation. We worked, as it was mentioned earlier by President Dedman, it feels like we've been working 24 hours, 7 days a week, but the 300 plus items we anticipate to be coming to the nation. And your chapter, again, we had that conversation last week regarding heavy equipment. And many of the chapters have been appreciative of the items that they're receiving and that they advocated for. And the delegates advocated for those and worked hard to put those expenditure plans together. So we look forward to your community agreeing and working with BCD to get those items completed and delivered to your chapter. So if you feel the need that we need to have this conversation, a follow-up, then we can do that for Low Mountain. Shanant Percy Deal, we have many communications and emails and phone calls with Mr. Percy Deal, a great advocate for his community. And I know that he's been working with Ms. Draper and Mr. Atakai on providing documents and moving some projects forward. If I can recall, one of them is the Sleepy Mountain project. So we appreciate advocacy and the need to complete these projects and the need to respond to our capacity That's very important, and working all together. And these documents are important, and they help address or move the projects forward for completion. So we appreciate your comments on that too as well. Adonana, Bessie Allen, here for your comments. We appreciate your advocacy as well, and always providing your comments and your leadership. You know, there's a great responsibility on the nation and to many of us division directors to start compiling and gathering information. We have the DOTI, the Navajo Nation Department of Education, the Education. They have been working on their listings. Many of the divisions have been called before Nabikiya to share their project proposals. DOTI is one of them. Division of Economic Development is another one. Division of Natural Resources. Collectively, the nation has been putting forward these priority projects. As President indicated earlier in his message, his welcoming message, that the need will be greater than the funding that is arriving. Our job is to really focus on what can be feasible and what best represents the chapter's needs. And we continue to work with all of the divisions as they represent their respective fields and expertise. Even the Department of Health, NDOH, they're submitting information. The enterprises are submitting packages. Even there's a discussion on Nabikiya today from former leaders, our former Navajo Nation leaders, Lands Department. It's been a month-long discussion and presentations before NABI, and really putting the nation on preparing for these ARPA. We're in a much better situation now than where we were a year ago. One, responding to COVID, and then transitioning really fast into the CARES Act. We're having earlier conversations. We're having these preliminary discussions. We're trying to plan and communicate with all the chapters as directed by our leaders, as directed by President Jonathan Nez and Vice President Leiser, to begin preparing for these conversations and working with the chapters. So I just want to respond with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. Dr. Jumbo Fitch, we will give you the floor. And those of you that we did not answer to, if you could email your questions to ARPA or your comment, arpa@nndcd.org. Dr. Jumbo Fitch, you have the floor.
Yes. Thank you. Good afternoon. I had a few questions and just general comments. So first question is, if we submit our chapter application and priority list prior to the May 19 deadline, I was asking if the applications are going to be reviewed and comments provided. So we as chapters are able to review and revise and resubmit as needed. And then another question or comment I have is, we understand that the guidelines are not set yet from the Treasury. We don't really know amounts and final items. I was wondering if that is the case after the May 19 deadline, if there are some projects on our list, for instance, the warehouse that might go past guidelines or not meet guidelines, if our chapter would be able at that time to provide additional information as needed. And then also, obviously, we all know that there's a lot of items that are backlogged through the nation and the various departments due to the closed and limited hours. I was wondering if we can't get information prior to the deadlines, will there be extensions? We mentioned there's a lot of requirements, and I just want to make sure that we are ensuring that if we are promising or making these priority lists for our community members, that we are going to follow through in some sort of fashion. And if we can't, what is the backup plan? And then obviously my last question is for emergency. If the guidelines change and there are different requirements or more items that could be added, a question I've wanted to know is if chapters could possibly request for emergency fund reimbursements. With our businesses closed, we obviously lost a lot of revenue throughout the nation. So that's another item I would like to entertain, because our chapters are like businesses. You know, we also need assistance and fundings to help continue our operations. So those are just 4 comments and questions that I would like to pose. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Jumbo Fitch. We do, yes, there are deadlines that are in place and applications will be reviewed. And then according to what my understanding is, comments will be made as needed to each of the chapters that are needing it. And as far as guidelines, like we stated, the guidelines have not been shared with us yet, but once we do, we will have another call with most likely each of the chapters and or send out a message indicating these are the guidelines and these are the amount of monies that are set out. And we understand about the emergency revenues and we'll continue to work with each of the chapters on those areas. And again, I will have DCD provide some of the written responses on this, on your questions on that. Ishin without these neat out of Kadona Ade Kidishin on us Tosaka and that these neat though. Alle deadline will yeniki belata hoshijo ado aja khajisha satnal sos yahatanes deigi e tanel ido do hotel al yashe atski ben hikinta hatone ado di e ya guidelines will yenit ato at ende kinat kadet ben hikane do based on lini ikone lan hit o nido aho at ende jo ben hikane da akonde ben hikone ashe kodo Saka ho zando e kodo aj trat nas ne libagan da nas ne lohon hikinta haton ado ni he besh bahasa anin lini do ni trat nas lini shi kodo ben hitna da hotil ne ado ada hota besh na da hotil ne do he he hidishni do le hanal so are hata so gizido da isenul tsanton da atos kidido ado na hahol jije. We apologize, but this is not the end of our meetings. We want to continue meeting and working with you. Closing remarks, JT Willie, who's our division director with our Division of Economic Development.
Auto Arnold Dikoni Hitra Naznele not Ani Dasataki IC Hehadole. Thank you very much. It's good to hear from many of you via the chat as well as those that have provided comment. Shema Bessie Allen, I hope to get out to your community soon to talk about pushing forth the economic development projects we were planning before the pandemic. Although Dr. Jumbo Fitch, we have a meeting this Friday set up to discuss the projects for Chin Lee. Auto Sheriff Joe Dedman, Auto Percy Deal, Nihido Yat Edole. As we in closing with this session this afternoon, I just want to say thank you very much to everybody for providing feedback. And as Shitsui Dr. Fowler mentioned, this is just the beginning of much of that crucial conversation for us to speak to all of the projects taking place under the American Rescue Plan. The formula nor the guideline has been communicated from the federal level yet. So therefore, we are taking all necessary steps in order to put our plans together, to start vetting them and getting prepared for conversations and also proposals through the various divisions. Dr. Yellowman, as well as community development, have been working endlessly with under the CARES Fund, and now we'll be picking up the efforts again under the American Rescue Plan. All of our divisions are responsible for certain areas to work cohesively together, and most importantly, collaborate our efforts to ensure that we execute the use of these dollars for the need of the Navajo people. And as we move forward, it's many of these perspectives that we focus on those much needed entities, those much needed infrastructure, such as broadband, such as fiber optic cable, such as Wi-Fi capabilities to allow us to enhance the community growth within each of these areas on Navajo. Particular to Central Navajo, when you have those things in place, you can bring everything out, such as economic development. Many of our business owners ask for the need to connect to Wi-Fi, ask for the need to connect to dependable fiber optics. So therefore, if those projects get pushed through, we can support their initiatives, growing the economic perspectives within Central Navajo. And so I'm very thankful very much to the local leadership to assisting us in these conversations. As mentioned, this is just the beginning of all of that. And as we continue our efforts in moving forward under the Nez Leiser administration, we will continue the efforts to ensure that we have something in place that will have a long-term effect. These projects may not benefit us in this time for us, but it may benefit it's for them that we plan these many things and work towards a better perspective. The pandemic really identified a lot of these needs for us. And of course, it brought to light all of the disparities that we have been speaking about for years. The need for water, the need for infrastructure, the need for road improvements to get to our local hospitals, the need to keep people local, to shop local and buy those essential products within your hometowns. But because they're not there, it led to what we were seeing, people traveling, people having to go and put themselves in danger because you couldn't see the COVID-19 virus. And so we put ourselves in the front lines. I'm very thankful to such individuals like all of you for being part of the conversation, as well as being frontline and providing those essential services to your communities and to those residences that you call your constituencies, and we all will work together to see a better perspective for us moving forward. So under the American Rescue Plan, that's our initiative moving forward, and we will continue the dialogue. So I'll turn it back over to you, Shitsui, Dr. Fowler.
Ado yananat eto ihehe at nihitini do lespanosco. Kojang hata siyo gizo sahoshi nihichinat at ntlado ala eba naho na shinta no sendejo. But shin ne la kon nahan nehon dasata because iti ado recommendation to side they're well noted. To ihehe nihiti nido lesto to atit yata tan hiti nido ade ben hitchan o ziwt abe hatcha ta as ahash kepes nas na long ishi in hin it edo be ta hil esi ba hensen ado kon shin is hitting ta hosil net do shik edo shit neto ye go ta hosyado Nihichito nize abatata des balon ta khe nihithaan da chekota janshiti nas nihi yahut zande ati konas nito be ta akonas ndo be ta hosyan shik